What if one day we found a way to stop the aging process, to conquer death itself, and become immortal? At first, it might feel like a dream come true. We'd have all the time in the world to travel, to learn, to create, to spend with loved ones. Families would never have to lose a loved one. The elderly could enjoy their golden years over and over again. The possibilities seem endless. But what happens when immortality becomes a reality? What are the downsides of living forever? Let's find out. You may think that being able to live forever would mean that there is no downside to it. But that's not quite true. The first problem that comes to mind is that if humans start living forever, our population would explode. It wouldn't take long for the resources like food, water, and land to run out. In fact, with the current rate of consumption, even if we stopped growing today, we would use up all the planet's resources in less than 100 years. And if everyone lived forever, we would use them up in just a fraction of that time. The governments would quickly realize that something had to be done to stop the population explosion. One such measure might be to restrict the number of children a couple can have. For example, they might only be allowed to have one child. In this case, the world population would still increase, but at a slower rate. This would allow humanity to avoid the worst consequences of overpopulation for longer, but it would also have some negative effects. For example, a couple that lost their only child would be devastated. They might even try to have more children, but they wouldn't be allowed to. In fact, they wouldn't even be allowed to adopt a child, since that would mean taking a child away from a family that might be able to have more. Moreover, this measure would lead to an unnatural gender imbalance, because couples who already had a son would prefer to have a daughter and vice versa. All this would contribute to the emergence of a black market where people would trade children like some kind of property. Another problem with immortality is that wealth and power would remain in the same hands forever, without the natural selection that comes with death. The strong will always stay on top and the weak will always stay at the bottom. Some people will get so much wealth and power that they will turn into some kind of god over the rest of humanity. They would have so much money that they could buy anything they want, whenever they want. And they would have so much power that they could do whatever they want without anyone being able to stop them. This would lead to a frozen society where there is no social mobility and no opportunity for advancement. Everyone would be stuck in the same place forever. Of course, there are many other problems with immortality, but you get the point. It might be fun to live forever, but only for a while. After a few decades or centuries, you might get tired of it. You might start to feel like a kind of vegetable that has outlived its usefulness and is just taking up space. If there's no death, then there is no meaning to life. So you might decide that the best thing to do is to die. But since you can't, you just lie down somewhere and refuse to eat or drink until your body shuts down on its own. Others might go insane. On the other hand, science, art, and knowledge could advance like never before. Take a look at our greatest scientists. They dedicated their lives to advancing our understanding of the universe. But most of them died before they were able to see the fruits of their labor. If they had lived longer, they might have achieved even more. Think about the Mona Lisa. It took Leonardo da Vinci for years to paint it, and he never stopped improving his craft. If he had lived longer, who knows what other masterpieces he might have created? Immortality would give us the time we need to accomplish anything we set our minds to. But it would also mean that we would live through all the wars, conflicts, and disasters that humanity will face in the future. We would also have to deal with the mistakes of others that we might not agree with. In short, we would be condemned to witness the worst of humanity forever. So the question is, would immortality be the ultimate gift for humanity or our greatest curse? You decide.